Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are doing our daily pitching preview show with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Right now, we're looking at the card for Sunday, June 28th. Some interesting starting pitching situations. We'll see what Joe Duffy has to say about them. Joe Duffy, thanks for being back with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Peter.
All right, Joe. Let's start with Steven Strasburg. Right, we love to talk about him. Sometimes, usually, we're talking about him. In the vein of him being overrated and a good fade, but he's coming off the disabled list. His arm should be relatively rested. He threw 5 shutout innings in his first start back from the DL. His arm should be rested. Maybe 4 or 5 starts down the line, he'll be a good fade. But I'm thinking, against Philly, probably he has another strong start, right?
I think it could be both mental, I should say, and physical. Maybe it's mental for me to be able to say mental. But in the case of Strasburg, we know he's one of the better pitchers in baseball. He was horrible. Perhaps physically, he needed the time off. Also, it kind of cleared his head, coming off a pretty good start, to say the least, in his return. And look, you can't handpick a better situation than be facing the Philadelphia Phillies. Granted, it's on the road, but a way to continue to build on that confidence would be to pitch against the Phillies. Of course, he'll be laying the big lumber. So if anything, I might look to possibly laying the 1.5 on the road, but it's not like the odds makers aren't more than aware this is a great situation for Strasburg.
Sure. And then Felix Hernandez, we've been discussing him, the first part of the year, we were just talking about how awesome he was and how you just wanted to bet on him, start in and start out. Now it's a more interesting situation. He's coming off of a subpar start. He seems like he's on one of those bad, good start patterns. So if that pattern holds, he'd be due for a good start here against the Angels. But obviously he's having more trouble now in general than he was in the beginning of the year. And on the other side, Hector Santiago is very solid, very reliable. What do you expect from Hernandez here, Joe?
In the case of Hector Santiago, look, he has been a heck of a pitcher. He's got a 2.68 ERA this year. He doesn't have the big name of a Felix Hernandez, so you are going to get, some pretty good value there. And in the case of Hernandez, he's not pitching Felix Hernandez capability. Look, he's got an ERA of 7.5 his last 3 starts. As you said, he has looked like himself in certain outings, but there are times he's got knocked around. I think at this point, when it comes to that magic word of value, betting against Felix Hernandez is a pretty good idea, and especially with Hector Santiago being one of the more underrated pitchers in baseball, probably a very good spot to fade him.
All right, and then a big-name guy who is still getting it done, start in and start out, is Zack Greinke, right? He's going to be on the road at Miami. David Phelps is okay, but clearly a notch down from Greinke. And, if Greinke has yet another 7-inning, 0 or 1 earned run start, that, once again, it's easy money, automatic money. Betting on that, do you think that's what we see?
He's a phenomenal pitcher. We certainly know that. The thing is, it's for whatever reason, he seems to pitch even better against the division, which is obviously not the case here. So the fact that he's going on the road and he's not pitching against a division means he's not, the automatic lock that he has been. But it's very tough to come up with a reason to fade him. But I don't know if I'm automatically going to jump on him because, as I said, he is pitching on the road and he seems to be slightly less dominant outside the division.
Okay, and then Chase Anderson, he's been pitching awesome. Start in and start out. Last start, he got crushed at Coors, but I think that's one of those Coors starts that we can throw out. Does he bounce back in a big way here on the road at San Diego?
It is tough. I mean, look, I agree with you. In long term, you can throw out what happens at Coors, but sometimes guys can get thrown off playing at Coors Field. It's tough to rebound from a game at Coors Field, and looks like he's going to be going against Despaigne, who at the beginning of the year was kind of a splits pitcher. Now he's struggling a little bit both at home and on the road, so probably going to be a high-scoring game. You might want to take a look at the over here.
Really? You think that Anderson's going to struggle? Because I think that, Odrisamer Despaigne might have a good start, but I'm thinking we see a very strong start from Anderson.
I don't know. I mean, he is coming off of a rough outing, like you said. It is at Coors Field, but if you believe that 90% of the game is half mental for a guy who's not an established pitcher, coming off of a bad outing of any sort, regardless of having a fairly legitimate excuse, playing, of course, in the ultimate pitcher's ballpark, I think it's kind of a tough spot for him.
All right, and then the last game I want to ask you about, Chris Archer, right? Starting again at home for Tampa Bay. He's just really great overall, not always throwing shutout ball, but almost always giving up, 2 runs at most. And then on the other side, Justin Masterson having a tough year. He returns from the disabled list, first start back. He was getting hit earlier this year. What state will he be in here? I don't know, but probably, his timing and his arm strength are not in peak form right now. Is there a huge pitching advantage here for Tampa Bay?
There is, but clearly Cliff Archer keeps getting better and better. The one thing that would make me a little bit nervous is he is 1-5 with a whopping 5.18 ERA against Boston. And the fact that the Red Sox bats have been underachieving, you never know. They seem to match up pretty well against Archer. So this might be a spot to at least pass on it because, Archer's been lights out, but he has not pitched very well against Boston in his career so far.
Yeah, and this is going to be a big line. Those minus 170 favorite lines when it's the pitching matchup that is causing the big line can be very dicey at times. All right, that's it for Sunday, June 28th that I wanted to make sure that we touched on. Joe Duffy, what would you like to share with us?
Well, we talked about it before. Jeff Samardzija seems to really get hit in the first inning and then settle down. So it's one of those cases, and I know that among the databases I do subscribe to, the Fox Sheets, where they do a pretty good job with the 5 innings. I'm going to have to look it up to see how Samardzija has been in 5 innings this year. But I think, if anything, you might want to bet on Detroit in the 5.5 inning line, and then possibly, if they get off to the big lead, come back with Chicago on that live line, because Samardzija is one of these guys who does seem to struggle early in contests and then settle down. Obviously, he's not having the year that was expected of him overall, but he really struggles in that first inning. And the Mets continue to struggle with John Neese, 1-7 in his last 8 starts. And Jeff Locke was drafted by the Braves. Well, that's one team that he struggles against. 5 career starts, 6.08 ERA.
All right, Joe Duffy, for anyone who's not familiar with you, if they go to offshoreinsiders.com, what can they expect, Joe?
They're going to get a little bit of everything. You got to read the analysis. You'll see in the analysis, which makes me so bleeping successful. Joe Duffy speaks offshoreinsiders.com. More than 27 years as a full-time professional handicapper.
Thanks so much, Joe. Talk to you again very soon.